Hi guys, sorry to interrupt your viewing, but please subscribe to the channel and like this video. Thank you.
You know that moment when your entire life shatters? Not the dramatic, movie-style explosion, but the quiet kind of breaking that happens in your parents' home office on a Tuesday afternoon? Yeah, that was me last week, staring at my computer screen, trying to make sense of the zeros where my college fund used to be. I'm Sarah Mitchell, and up until exactly 2 minutes ago, I was going to be a doctor. Funny how dreams can vanish with a single mouse click. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that when they betray you, it feels like the ground itself is lying to you? Like maybe gravity might decide to stop working next? That's what I'm dealing with right now, and I still can't quite believe it's real. What would you do if your entire future was stolen by the people who were supposed to protect it? Would you fight back, walk away, or something else entirely? Drop a comment below. I'm genuinely curious because God knows I'm still figuring it out myself. Let me back up a bit. 3 days ago, we were having our weekly family dinner. Mom's lasagna night. The same recipe she's been making since I was kids. My brother James was there, looking smugger than usual in his expensive new watch. Should have known something was up right then. Sarah, honey, Mom said, pushing the garlic bread toward me. We need to talk about your college plans. I remember taking a bite of lasagna, thinking this was just another conversation about med school applications. Dad cleared his throat. That same throat clear he used when he told us our dog died when I was 12. We've had to make some adjustments to the family finances, he started. James suddenly became very interested in his phone. Your brother got into some trouble. Mom jumped in, reaching for James's hand like he was still 5 years old and had scraped his knee. We had to help him out. Trouble? I put down my fork. What kind of trouble needs my entire college fund to fix? That's when James looked up, that familiar half-smile on his face. The same one he had when he'd blamed me for breaking things as kids. Just a few bad bets, sis. But hey, it all worked out. A few bad bets? My voice went up an octave. How much is a few? $50,000, Dad said quietly. It was either help him or let some very dangerous people. I didn't let him finish. 50,000? My entire future? Everything I've been working for? Oh, come on, Sarah. James rolled his eyes. It's not like you need a degree to be successful. Look at me. I'm doing fine. Fine. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. You call gambling away my future fine? Sarah, Mom's voice had that warning tone. Your brother made some mistakes, but he's family. We protect family. And what am I? The words came out as a whisper. That's when Dad dropped the bomb that would change everything. You're young. You could take out loans, work for a few years. James needed this now. You'll understand when you're older. I looked around the table. At Mom's pleading eyes, Dad's stern face, and James's barely concealed smirk. 25 years of love and trust crumbled like the garlic bread on my plate. I walked out. Didn't even grab my coat. March in Boston isn't kind to coatless escapees, but I barely felt the cold. My phone buzzed with texts. Mom asking me to come back and discuss this rationally. James sending a string of laughing emojis. That's how I ended up here, in my apartment, staring at my empty bank account. Everything I'd saved from summer jobs, birthday money, the inheritance from Grandma, all of it gone. Just zeros where my dreams used to be. But here's the thing they don't know yet. Sometimes when you break someone's future, you create something else. Something they never saw coming. Because while I sat there, watching my tears hit my keyboard, my phone lit up with a message from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Mitchell, I've been following your family's situation with great interest. Perhaps we could help each other. Marcus Chun, CEO. I almost deleted it. Almost. But when you've got nothing left to lose, even the strangest lifelines start to look good. You know what's worse than having your entire future stolen? Watching your smug older brother pull up to your crappy new apartment in a brand new Tesla while you're hauling garbage bags full of your clothes up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator's broken. Again. Sarah, come on. James called out from his car window. You're being dramatic. It's been 2 weeks. Time to get over it. I kept walking, garbage bag slung over my shoulder like some discount Santa Claus. My new home, a 600-square-foot testament to rock bottom, sat at the end of a hallway that smelled perpetually of someone else's cooking. The rent ate up most of my savings from my barista job, but at least it wasn't home. Have you ever noticed how rock bottom has a basement? And that basement has a sub-basement? Yeah, me neither, until now. Tell me about your rock bottom moment in the comments. Trust me, this story's about to show you how those moments can become foundations. My phone buzzed again. Another message from the mysterious Marcus Chun. I'd been ignoring them for days, but they kept coming. Your parents' business isn't as stable as they think. Your brother's debts aren't paid. They're just transferred. We should talk about your future, Ms. Mitchell. I deleted them all. Creepy CEO stalkers weren't exactly on my to-do list right now. Instead, I pulled up Indeed.com for the 47th time today. Turns out, almost pre-med student with extensive coffee-making experience isn't exactly in high demand. Mom called while I was scrolling through job listings. Sarah, please be reasonable. Her voice crackled through the speaker. Come home. We can figure this out as a family. Figure what out? I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my ears. How to fund James's next gambling spree. Or maybe which of my organs to sell for his bad decisions. That's not fair. He's getting help. Help? Like the help you gave him with my future. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. He's going to meetings, she finally said. And he promised, right? I cut her off. Just like he promised after the car accident. And after he borrowed Grandma's jewelry. And after. That's different. He was younger then. He's 28, Mom. I'm 25. When do I get to be the one you protect? More silence. Then, your father and I are just trying to keep the family together. No, I said quietly. You're trying to keep James together. The rest of us are just collateral damage. After hanging up, I sat on my secondhand couch. Thank you, Facebook Marketplace, and opened my laptop. The browser was still open to my bank account, all zeros like digital middle fingers. That's when my phone buzzed again. Marcus Chun, your brother just placed another bet. 50,000 wasn't enough. Want to know what happens next? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I did something I'd never done before. I hit reply. How do you know all this? The response came instantly. Coffee? There's a place called the Daily Grind 2 blocks from you. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I should have said no. Should have blocked the number and gone back to job hunting. Should have done anything except what I did next. But here's the thing about rock bottom. When you're there, looking up, everyone offering a hand starts to look like an angel, even if they might be the devil. I grabbed my coat. The Daily Grind was nearly empty when I arrived. A man sat alone by the window, early 40s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my rent. He didn't look up from his phone as I approached, but I knew it was him. Ms. Mitchell, he said, still not looking up. Do you know why your parents really helped your brother? I sat down across from him. Because they love him more? Now he did look up, and his smile made me wish he hadn't. No, because they're afraid of him. And after what I'm about to show you, you will be too. He slid a folder across the table. That folder sat between us like a bomb about to go off. Marcus Chun's manicured fingers rested on its edge, but he didn't open it. Before I show you this, he said, I need you to understand something. Once you see what's inside, there's no going back. Your family will never be the same. Ever had one of those moments where you know you're standing at a crossroads, and whichever path you choose is going to change everything? What did you choose? The safe route or the truth? Drop a comment below. I'm curious how many of you would have opened that folder. They stopped being the same when they stole my future, I said, reaching for the folder. Marcus pulled it back slightly. Your brother owes money to some very dangerous people, Ms. Mitchell. The kind who don't send polite payment reminders. And you know this because? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Because I own their debt now. The coffee in my stomach turned to ice. You're what? Some kind of loan shark? I prefer alternative financial solutions provider, he said, finally opening the folder. But more importantly, I'm someone who sees potential in ruins. The first document was a bank statement. My parents' business account. The numbers were not good. Your father's construction company is 3 months away from bankruptcy, Marcus said. Your brother's gambling debts were just the beginning. They've been using company funds to cover his tracks for years. That's impossible, I whispered. Dad's company is successful. They just landed that big contract downtown. A contract they can't fulfill because your brother embezzled the supply budget. Marcus slid another paper forward. He's gotten quite good at hiding his tracks. Almost good enough. My hands shook as I read through the documents. Bank transfers, fake invoices, shell companies, all in James's elegant handwriting. Why are you showing me this? Because I'm offering you a job, Ms. Mitchell. He leaned back, studying me. Your brother has a talent for numbers and deception. But you have something better. You have motivation. What kind of job? I run a tech startup that specializes in financial security systems. We help companies protect themselves against exactly the kind of fraud your brother commits. He paused. Or we help them commit it better. Depends on the client. I pushed the folder away. You want me to help you commit fraud? I want you to help me catch people like your brother. Or help them. Again, depends on the client. He shrugged. The salary is $200,000 a year to start. Plus, other benefits. I don't know anything about finance or tech. No, he agreed. But you know everything about how your brother thinks. And you have something he'll never have, genuine intelligence rather than just cunning. I can teach you the rest. My phone buzzed. A text from James. Hey sis, can you spot me some cash? Just until next week. Promise I'm good for it. I showed Marcus the text. He didn't look surprised. He's already lost the money mom and dad gave him, I said. It wasn't a question. 3 days ago, Marcus confirmed. He's working his way through a list of relatives now. You're just the latest stop? Why me? Why this job? Because revenge served cold is profitable. And because everyone deserves a chance to rewrite their story. He stood up, straightening his jacket. Take the weekend to think about it. But remember, your brother isn't stopping. The only question is whether you want to watch your family burn from the inside or do something about it. He left his card on the table. Simple black text on white cardstock. Marcus Chun, CEO, Phoenix Securities. As I walked home, my phone buzzed again. Mom, this time, your brother's in trouble again. Please call us. I looked at Marcus's card, then at my mother's text. Sometimes the most dangerous decisions feel like the only ones left. 3 weeks into my new job at Phoenix Securities, and I still couldn't shake the feeling that I'd made a deal with the devil. A very well-dressed devil who kept bringing me expensive coffee and teaching me how to dissect financial statements like a surgeon with a scalpel. Focus, Sarah, Marcus said, tapping the screen of my fourth monitor. Yes, fourth. Apparently, 2 screens are for amateurs, and 3 is for people who don't take their revenge seriously enough. What's wrong with this transaction? You ever notice how the more you learn about something, the more you realize how much you didn't know before? What's the one skill you learned that completely changed how you saw the world? Share below, because trust me, what I learned next changed everything. I squinted at the numbers flowing across my screen. The timestamps don't match the trading hours? Good. Marcus nodded. What else? The amounts are just under reporting thresholds. Multiple transactions, same beneficiary, different shell companies. I stopped, my stomach turning. This is exactly what James does, isn't it? Did. Marcus corrected. This is from 3 years ago. Your brother's gotten more sophisticated since then. Speaking of which, he slid his phone across my desk. A text from James to Dad. Need 20K by Friday. Investment opportunity. Time sensitive. How do you keep getting these? I asked. Marcus's smile was cold. People tend to forget their phones aren't just phones anymore. They're windows. My new office overlooked downtown Boston, 32 floors up. High enough to feel above it all, low enough to still see people going about their lives below. Normal people who probably hadn't sold their souls for a chance at justice. Or revenge. I still wasn't sure which this was. Your brother's latest scheme, Marcus continued, pulling up more documents, involves convincing your parents to mortgage their house. He's found some investors who promised triple returns within 6 months. They wouldn't fall for that, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew better. They'd fall for anything James sold them. They've already started the paperwork. I spun in my chair to face him. Why tell me? Why not stop it? Because, Ms. Mitchell, sometimes you have to let people hit rock bottom before they can see the truth. And sometimes, he paused, you have to help them get there faster. That's when my office door opened, and a woman I'd never seen before walked in like she owned the place. Badge on her hip, power suit that meant business. Detective Diana Cooper, she announced, looking between Marcus and me. I'm investigating a series of financial irregularities involving Phoenix Securities. Mind if I ask you both a few questions? Marcus's face gave away nothing. Do you have a warrant, detective? Not yet. She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Consider this a courtesy call? Particularly since your newest employee here has some interesting family connections we'd love to discuss. I felt the blood drain from my face. 3 weeks of training, and nobody had prepared me for this. Sarah, Marcus said calmly, why don't you take an early lunch? Actually, Detective Cooper cut in, I'd prefer she stay. There are some transactions involving her brother that... My phone buzzed. Mom, Sarah, honey, we need to talk. Your father and I are making some changes to our will. James suggested. I didn't finish reading the message. Instead, I looked up at Detective Cooper, then at Marcus, then back at my phone. Sometimes playing the game means choosing which rules you're willing to break. Detective, I heard myself say, I think there's something you should know about Phoenix Securities. And about my brother? Marcus's eyebrows shot up. Detective Cooper pulled out her notebook. And somewhere across town, my brother was probably still smiling, not knowing his game was about to change forever. I've always wondered why they call it turning state's evidence. Like somehow betraying your family becomes more noble if you wrap it in legal jargon. But sitting across from Detective Cooper in a coffee shop 3 blocks from Phoenix Securities, nobility was the last thing on my mind. Your brother's operation is bigger than we thought, Cooper said, sliding crime scene photos across the table. Not the kind with blood and bodies, the kind with spreadsheets and bank statements. Somehow, they felt just as violent. They say blood is thicker than water, but how thick is it really when the blood's been poisoned? What would you choose? Protecting your family or protecting everyone your family might hurt next? Drop your thoughts below, because I'm still not sure I made the right choice. James isn't working alone, I said, pushing one photo back. See this signature? That's not his handwriting. Cooper leaned forward. How can you be so sure? Because it's our father's. The detective's pen scratched across her notebook. Outside, the Boston rain turned the sidewalks into mirrors, reflecting a city that suddenly felt too small for all our secrets. My phone lit up with a text from Marcus, meeting. Now, your boss doesn't know you're here, Cooper said. It wasn't a question. Marcus Chun plays every side of every game, I replied. The question is, which side are you on? She closed her notebook. I'm on the side of the law, Ms. Mitchell. The real question is, what exactly are you trying to accomplish? Before I could answer, another text buzzed through. James this time. Hey sis, heard you got a new job. Banking? We should talk. Lots of opportunities we could explore together. My blood ran cold. He knew. I have to go, I told Cooper, standing up. Sarah, she caught my arm. Whatever game you're playing with, Chun, be careful. We've been watching him for years. People who get close to him tend to disappear. Maybe they deserve to, I said, pulling away. The elevator ride to Marcus's office felt longer than usual. When I walked in, he was standing at the window, watching the rain. Detective Cooper is building a RICO case, he said without turning around. Your brother's activities have attracted attention from people far more dangerous than local police. You knew this would happen. Now he did turn, and his smile was different than I'd ever seen it. Everything that has happened, Ms. Mitchell, has happened because you needed it to. What are you talking about? Your brother's new investment opportunity? The one that's about to cost your parents their house. He pressed a button on his desk, and my monitors lit up with familiar-looking documents. Look closely at the shell company he's working with. I scanned the incorporation papers, the banking details, the weight. This is impossible, I whispered. Is it? Marcus sat down, steepling his fingers. Who do you think funded your college account in the first place? Who do you think has been watching your family for years, waiting for the right moment? My head spun. Why? Because 25 years ago, your father made a choice very similar to the one you're about to make. He chose family over justice. And some debts. Marcus smiled again. Some debts take generations to repay. The rain beat against the windows like a metronome, counting down to something I couldn't see. What do you want from me? The same thing you want, he said simply. To watch it all burn. The question is, are you ready to light the match? My phone buzzed one more time. A message from Dad. Sarah, we need to talk about James. And about what you've been doing at Phoenix Securities. Sometimes the real turn isn't in the story, it's in your soul. The thing about revenge is that it's a lot like gambling. You keep raising the stakes, convinced the next hand will be the one that makes it all worthwhile. I should have learned that from James. Instead, I was about to make his mistakes look like amateur hour. Your father's construction company is officially insolvent, Marcus announced, dropping a thick file on my desk. As of 9 this morning, they've defaulted on loans totaling $4.2 million. Have you ever watched a disaster unfold in slow motion, knowing you could stop it, but choosing not to? What does that say about human nature? Or more importantly, what does it say about you? Share your thoughts below, because I'm still trying to understand my own choices. Dad's company was worth at least $10 million, I said, flipping through the documents. How is this possible? Marcus pulled up a series of transactions on my main screen. Your brother's been busy. Very busy. Those investment opportunities he's been pushing, they all led back to one place. Phoenix Securities, I whispered. Smart girl. He nodded. We now own controlling interest in Mitchell Construction. Your father just doesn't know it yet. My phone lit up with a text from James. Found something interesting about your boss. Meet me at Donovan's. 1 hour. Come alone, or Mom and Dad get some interesting photos. Trouble? Marcus asked, noticing my expression. James wants to meet. Says he has dirt on you. His laugh was cold. Your brother always thinks he's the smartest person in the room. That's what makes him so predictable. Detective Cooper's business card felt heavy in my pocket. One call, and this could all end. Instead, I asked, what do you want me to do? Meet him. Play along. Let him think he's winning. Marcus's smile didn't reach his eyes. Oh, and Sarah? Record everything. Donovan's was a dive bar where James used to celebrate his winning streaks. The kind of place that smelled like stale beer and bad decisions. He was waiting in a back booth, looking more polished than usual in a custom suit. Baby's sister, he grinned, raising a glass. Banking suits you. Though Phoenix Securities isn't exactly what it seems, is it? What do you want, James? He slid his phone across the table. On it was a photo, younger Marcus Chun shaking hands with our father. The timestamp read 25 years ago. Found this in Dad's old files, James said, along with some very interesting transfer records. Seems like your boss and our father have history. The kind that ends with people in prison. Is that what you want? To send Dad to prison? No, sis. His grin widened. I want in. Before I could respond, both our phones buzzed. A message from Mom. Your father's had a heart attack. Come to Boston General. Now. James's face went pale. For a moment, I saw the brother I used to know, the one who taught me to ride a bike and scared away playground bullies. This isn't over, he said, standing up. No, I agreed, thinking of the recording device in my pocket and Detective Cooper's card burning a hole next to it. It's just beginning. At the hospital, Detective Cooper was already waiting in the lobby. Your father's stable, she said quietly. But before you go up, there's something you need to see. She handed me a file. Inside was a death certificate from 25 years ago. The name made my blood run cold. Marcus Chun died in 1999, Cooper said. So, who exactly have you been working for? Sometimes when you double down on a bet, you realize too late that the game was rigged from the start. The beeping of Dad's heart monitor kept perfect time with the ticking of my watch as I sat in the ICU waiting room, staring at the death certificate in my hands. Marcus Chun, or whoever he really was, hadn't shown up at the hospital, but he had sent flowers. Black roses. The card read, "Time to finish what we started." They say when you're drowning, your whole life flashes before your eyes. But what happens when you realize your whole life was built on lies? Share a moment when everything you thought you knew turned out to be wrong. Because I'm about to tell you how my entire world unraveled in a single night. He was trying to protect you, Mom said quietly, sitting down beside me. Her eyes were red-rimmed, makeup smeared. Your father, he thought he was doing the right thing. By stealing from his own company? By letting James destroy everything? By keeping his promise? She pulled an old envelope from her purse, yellowed with age. 25 years ago, your father made a deal to save his brother's life. Dad doesn't have a brother. Not anymore. The envelope contained a single photograph. Dad, younger and smiling, standing between two men. One was the real Marcus Chun. The other, Uncle Mike, I whispered. The uncle we'd been told died in a car accident before I was born. But what does this have to do with? Ms. Mitchell. The voice behind me made my blood freeze. The man who called himself Marcus Chun stood in the doorway, immaculate as always. I believe it's time we discuss the truth about your family's debt. James burst in before he could continue. Don't tell her anything. He was wild-eyed, disheveled. Sarah, whatever he's told you, whatever he's shown you, it's not what you think. Detective Cooper chose that moment to step out of the shadows. Actually, Mr. Mitchell, it's exactly what she thinks. We found the bodies. Bodies? Mom's voice cracked. 3 of them, Cooper continued. All former Phoenix Securities employees. All with connections to your family's case from 25 years ago. The false Marcus smiled. Detective Cooper has been working for me the entire time, Ms. Mitchell. Just like you have. Just like your father did. Just like everyone does. In the end, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 3rd floor supply closet. 2 minutes. Come alone if you want the real story. MC. I looked up. The false Marcus was arguing with Cooper. James was trying to explain something to Mom. Nobody was watching me. Sometimes the biggest gambles are the ones we take when we have nothing left to lose. I slipped away, counting doors until I found the supply closet. Inside, an elderly Asian man sat in a wheelchair. Hello, Sarah, he said softly. I'm the real Marcus Chun, and it's time you learned what really happened the night your uncle died. He held out a USB drive. Everything you need to know is here. But remember, once you use this information, there's no going back. Your entire family will face the consequences. Why help me now? His smile was sad. Because 25 years ago, your father made the wrong choice to save his family. Now it's your turn to make the right one to destroy it. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Running out of time. Choose wisely, Sarah, the real Marcus whispered. The game isn't about who has the best cards. It's about who's willing to lose everything to win. The weight of the USB drive burned in my pocket as I stepped back into the hospital's sterile corridors, the echoes of hurried footsteps and distant monitors melding into an ominous symphony. Every step felt like a bet with fate, a gamble where the stakes were nothing less than my family's very soul. I couldn't shake the image of the frail, sincere eyes of the real Marcus Chun in that cramped supply closet, urging me to learn the truth. But now, as the night deepened, so did the chaos around me. In the ICU waiting area, the fragile veneer of our family's past was crumbling. My mother, Linda, sat slumped against a cold wall, tears silently carving lines of regret on her cheeks. My father's empty hospital bed loomed like a silent accusation. Robert's eyes, red and hollow, darted from the photograph of a younger, happier time to the devastation of the present. "I never wanted it to come to this," he murmured, as if speaking the words aloud might somehow reverse the irreversible. The truth of his secret deal, the desperate sacrifice made 25 years ago, was no longer buried in old envelopes and faded photographs. It was now a raging inferno threatening to consume us all. Down the hall, James was in a different kind of turmoil. His wild eyes and trembling hands betrayed the terror of a man whose every misstep had led him to this crossroads. Detective Cooper's presence had pushed him into a corner. "James, we know about your gambling debts. The money siphoned off to cover more than just your vices," the detective said, his tone both accusatory and pitiless. "You're not the only one playing with fire in this family." James's desperate protest dissolved into the sound of his ragged breathing, the realization that his actions were the final card in a collapsing house of lies weighing on him. With the hospital corridors serving as a stage for unraveling destinies, I slipped away once more to a dimly lit corner near the exit. There, beneath the buzz of fluorescent lights, I finally found a moment of solitude to plug the USB into my laptop. The screen flickered, and soon a montage of documents, recorded confessions, and grainy security footage unfolded before me. Each file was a piece of the puzzle, a record of secret meetings, hush phone calls, and transactions that spanned decades. The voice of the real Marcus Chun resonated over the speakers. "Your father made a choice to save a life, but in doing so, he sold our family's future. Now, it is time for the truth to break free." As I scrolled through the damning evidence, my heart pounded with a mingling of rage and sorrow. The files revealed that the deal wasn't just a desperate act of love. It was the cornerstone of a vast, corrupt network that had since bled our family dry. It explained the cryptic ties between Phoenix Securities, the shady characters in the background, and the mysterious Uncle Mike, whose death had been conveniently covered up. With every new revelation, my sense of betrayal deepened. The house we built on a foundation of secrets was collapsing, and there was no turning back. Outside, the night had taken on an almost surreal stillness. I found myself torn between the urge to expose everything and the desperate need to protect what little remained of my family. Each revelation forced me to confront a bitter moral dilemma. If I let the truth out, James would face the full wrath of the law, my parents would be dragged into a scandal that could ruin what was left of their honor, and I might become an accomplice in a story I never wanted to inherit. Yet, burying the past meant repeating the sins that had doomed us all. In the midst of my internal battle, a familiar, urgent buzz came from my phone, a message from an unknown number. "Time's almost up. Meet me where it all began." The words sent a chill down my spine. I hesitated, wondering if the mysterious contact was allied with the false Marcus still at large, or if it was another piece in this deadly game orchestrated by the real mastermind. Every moment was now a high-stakes gamble. Determined to confront the impending chaos, I found James in a vacant corridor. His face, already etched with guilt and fear, hardened as he caught sight of me. "Sarah, you don't understand," he began, voice cracking. "Everything I did, I was drowning in debt. I was trying to keep us afloat. But now, they're coming for all of us." His confession hung between us, raw and unfiltered, as if acknowledging his own downfall might somehow absolve the sins of our past. Meanwhile, Detective Cooper's investigation was unraveling threads that connected everyone in ways I hadn't dared to imagine. At the center of it all was the real Marcus Chun's master plan, a meticulous scheme not solely aimed at vengeance, but at dismantling a corrupt financial empire that had long profited from our family's misfortune. His plan, recorded in painstaking detail on the USB, was as much about justice as it was about forcing us to reckon with our own complicity. The game isn't about who holds the winning hand. his voice echoed in my mind, but about knowing when to fold and when to risk everything for a chance at redemption. In that moment of grim clarity, as the walls of our carefully constructed illusions began to fall, I realized the true cost of our secrets. Every lie, every desperate gamble had led to this fragile, dangerous precipice. The choices laid before me were stark. Expose the rot at the heart of our family legacy and face the consequences, or bury the past and allow the cycle of corruption to continue unabated. Standing in the dim corridor, with the USB's revelations pulsing in my veins and my family's fate hanging in the balance, I felt the crushing weight of a moral crisis unlike any I had ever known. The house of cards was collapsing, one misstep away from total ruin, and I was the only one holding the remaining pieces. As footsteps echoed down the hall and the future loomed uncertain, I took a deep breath. The final round had begun, and every decision from this moment forward would either salvage what was left of our lives or consign us to a destiny of irrevocable loss. I had to choose wisely, for in this game, losing everything might be the only way to finally win. I stepped out into the frigid night, the neon hospital glow receding behind me as I absorbed the full weight of what I'd learned. The USB drive, heavy with damning evidence, throbbed in my pocket like a live wire. My phone vibrated once more, a new message in a terse, unfamiliar font. "Time's almost up. Meet me where it all began." There was no time for second-guessing. Every instinct screamed that this was the final bet, the ultimate hand in a game that had cost us so much already. I quickened my pace, my breath fogging in the cold air, as I retraced memories of my childhood, a time when the world seemed simpler, and when the old Phoenix Securities building, with its worn facade and faded grandeur, had been a symbol of our family's promise. Now, it stood as a decaying monument to secrets and betrayals. The building's chipped lettering and broken windows welcomed me like an open grave. Stepping through the fractured glass door, I was assaulted by the silence of abandoned corridors. Dust motes danced in the pale light streaming through gaps in the boarded-up windows, each one a tiny echo of forgotten conversations and lost hope. Every step forward felt like a descent into the heart of our family's darkest history, a place where dreams and lies had intertwined to form a precarious house of cards. I reached the grand foyer, where the air was heavy with the ghosts of past ambitions. In the center of this empty space, I paused, the USB drive pressed against my leg, a silent reminder that every secret of my father's desperate bargains, every carefully concealed deception, was now mine to wield. And then I heard it, a faint, measured shuffle from behind a pillar. From the shadows emerged Detective Diana Cooper, her eyes steady and alert despite the weariness etched on her face. "Sarah," she said quietly, "I'm relieved you followed the lead. We have to move quickly." Before I could ask what danger she foresaw, another figure stepped into the dim light, a man whose presence radiated cold authority and menace. "Ms. Mitchell," the man drawled, his tone a mixture of mockery and scorn. It was false Marcus, his impeccably tailored suit and unsettling smile belying the threat in his words. "You really think clinging to a USB drive will change the rules of this game? This isn't about family sentiment. It's about the empire you've all been feeding with your secrets." Detective Cooper's eyes narrowed as she took a step forward. "Your empire is built on exploitation and lies," she countered evenly. "And now you're here to remind us that some debts are forever unpaid." Her words echoed in the cavernous hall, each syllable challenging the fragile order we thought we understood. Before I could gather my thoughts, I caught movement at the far end of the corridor. My brother James appeared, his eyes dark with regret and desperation. "Sarah, please," he pleaded, voice shaking as he took a tentative step toward me. I was trying to save us all. I never wanted it to come to this." The raw pain in his admission cut through the tension like a razor, forcing me to confront the consequences of his and our reckless choices. I stood between these opposing forces, a lone figure clutching the evidence of our family's sins. My mind raced with memories. My father's haunted eyes as he sealed that fateful deal 25 years ago, the bittersweet promise hidden in an old envelope, and the image of Uncle Mike, a ghost we'd been told was long dead. Every secret, every desperate gamble had led to this crumbling moment. The building around us, once a proud testament to ambition, now groaned under the weight of our collective guilt and shame. "I'm done living in shadows," I declared, my voice trembling but resolute. "No more secrets. Tonight, everything comes out into the light. My words seemed to challenge the very darkness that had defined my life for so long. A low, mocking laugh came from false Marcus as he stepped closer. "Oh, dear Sarah, truth is a luxury for those who can afford to lose," he taunted. "Do you really understand the stakes here? In this game, every revelation is a bet, and every bet can cost you everything." Before I could respond, a new sound rippled through the silence, a steady, ominous rhythm of approaching footsteps. Figures in dark suits, their faces hidden in the deep shadows of the corridor, emerged with deliberate precision. They were the enforcers, agents of the very corrupt network my father's deal had once propped up, now mobilized to protect its secrets at any cost. Detective Cooper snapped, "Everyone, back off. Sarah, get behind me." The authoritative command left no room for hesitation. The enforcers advanced, their steps measured, each one a threat that resonated in the cold air. I pressed the USB drive closer, feeling as though I held the power to dismantle a carefully constructed edifice of lies, or to ignite an inferno that would consume us all. Time seemed to slow as I weighed the enormity of my next move. Every memory, every betrayal surged in my mind. I recalled my father's desperate plea when he made that deal. To save a life, to preserve the semblance of honor, even if it meant sacrificing everything. Now, with these revelations in my grasp, the legacy of that sacrifice was poised on a knife's edge. James's voice, choked with remorse, reached me again. "Sarah, I'm sorry. I never wanted this outcome." His eyes, wide with a mixture of fear and regret, searched mine for a sign of mercy. But the path forward was clear. The evidence I held was not just a record of our past misdeeds. It was a weapon against the corrupt empire that had thrived on our family's ruin. I lifted my chin, meeting false Marcus's cold, calculating stare. "I won't let your lies and this twisted system keep us in the dark any longer," I said, my voice rising above the murmur of the approaching enforcers. "I'm going to expose every secret, every hidden deal. And if that means tearing down the house of cards you built, so be it." At that precise moment, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen, heart pounding as I read the new message. "This is only the beginning, Sarah. The final card is yet to be played." The words stung with a mixture of promise and threat, deepening the moral chasm I now faced. I was caught between the relentless pull of revenge and the desperate hope for redemption. Could I bear the consequences of laying bare every sin, knowing that doing so might shatter not only our corrupt empire, but the very remnants of the family I once knew? Then, without warning, a deafening crack shattered the charged silence. A bullet whistled past me, embedding itself in a crumbling pillar with a resounding thud. Instantly, chaos erupted. Detective Cooper shouted, "Take cover," as the enforcer's disciplined formation splintered into frenzied motion. I dove behind a fallen beam. The USB drive clutched as if it were the last vestige of hope. In the ensuing melee, every sound, the panicked shouts, the clash of bodies, the staccato rhythm of footsteps, melded into a cacophony of impending doom. I could barely make out false Marcus's enraged voice over the din. "You really think you can outplay me, little girl?" His sneer was laden with the certainty of someone who believed that in the high-stakes game of power, betrayal was inevitable. James, already reeling from the chaos, cried out, "Sarah, no!" as he staggered in the dim light, his expression a tormented blend of fear and remorse. I knew then that the stakes were no longer just abstract ideals of right and wrong. They were lives, shattered trust, and the slow, inevitable collapse of everything we'd built. As sirens began to wail in the distance and the oppressive darkness pressed in from every side, I made my choice. I rose from behind the beam, my decision crystallizing amidst the chaos. "I'm done hiding," I declared, voice trembling yet resolute. "I'm going to expose every lie, every stolen promise, even if it means losing everything." In that fraught moment, standing in the crumbling heart of our family's past, I realized that the final round had truly begun. The house of cards we'd all so carefully constructed was about to come crashing down. And in that collapse lay the only hope of redemption. The truth, now my only weapon, would either shatter our world or force us to rebuild it from the ruins. And as the darkness closed in, I stepped forward, ready to play my final hand. Dawn broke with a hesitant light over the shattered remains of our past. A past now exposed for all its hidden sins and desperate gambles. I stood on the cracked pavement outside the old Phoenix Securities building, its once proud facade scarred by the night's chaos. In the cool pre-dawn air, the weight of every secret, every betrayal, pressed on my shoulders. The USB drive that had ignited this chain reaction still burned in my pocket, a silent reminder that the truth was now both our salvation and our curse. Inside the building's remnants, the echoes of our final confrontation still reverberated. Earlier that night, amid shattered glass and frantic shouts, I declared, "I won't let your lies and this twisted system keep us in the dark any longer." My words had cut through the tension like a blade, setting in motion a reckoning that none of us could escape. Now, as the first rays of light crept in, the chaos had subsided into a heavy, reflective silence. Detective Diana Cooper stood a few paces away, her stern gaze softened by exhaustion and a hint of relief. Next to her, my parents, Linda and Robert, huddled together, their expressions a mingling of regret and fragile hope. And James, my wild-eyed brother whose desperate choices had nearly cost us everything, leaned against a crumbling wall, the weight of his actions etched in every line of his face. I took a deep breath, stepping forward until we formed an uneasy semicircle. "It's over," I said, though the words rang hollow even to my own ears. "At least the part of it that we can control." Linda's voice trembled as she spoke. "Sarah, we never meant for it to go this far. Your father, he did what he thought was right, even if it meant making sacrifices we can't undo." Robert added, his voice heavy with remorse, "We made deals to keep our family afloat, to protect you from a world that we thought was too cruel. But the cost was far too high." James shuffled closer, his eyes glistening with tears. "I'm sorry. I lost myself in the game. I gambled with everything, and now I can't even ask for forgiveness." Detective Cooper's steady tone broke through our murmuring. "There's no easy redemption in a world built on secrets. Tonight, I've seen enough to arrest those responsible for the corruption that's haunted your family for decades. But justice isn't a clean slate. It leaves scars that remind us of what we've lost." Her words resonated with a bitter truth. The evidence on that USB drive had already set wheels in motion. High-ranking officials in the corrupt network were in custody, and the man masquerading as Marcus Chun, the false prophet of our ruin, had been apprehended earlier that very night. Yet questions remained about the real Marcus Chun, the one who had entrusted me with the damning evidence, and whose enigmatic motives had spurred this all-consuming quest for truth. His whereabouts were unknown, his final intentions as murky as the family secrets he'd unearthed. Standing there, amidst the ruins of both a building and a legacy, I felt the full weight of the choice I had made. Every card I'd played in this treacherous game of family, lies, and revenge had led to this moment, a moment where the past and future collided in a final reckoning. I slowly reached into my pocket and withdrew the USB drive, its plastic casing scuffed and warm from my grip. "This evidence," I began, addressing everyone, "is not just proof of wrongdoing. It's a record of every choice we made when we were desperate to protect what we loved. It's a map of the labyrinth we built out of fear and hope. And now, it's time to face the consequences." A heavy pause followed, as if the universe itself held its breath. My parents exchanged glances filled with sorrow and a quiet determination. James's eyes, red-rimmed and weary, locked with mine. In that silent communion, we understood that reconciliation would not erase the past but might be the only way to rebuild from its ruins. Detective Cooper stepped forward, her voice softening ever so slightly. "Sarah, exposing the truth isn't about vengeance. It's about setting a precedent. You have given these people a reason to reckon with the damage done. But remember, even as you tear down these walls, new ones may rise in their place." Her words stung with a truth I wasn't ready to accept. I had risked everything in the hope that unveiling our family's darkest secrets would free us from the cycle of corruption and betrayal. Yet the line between justice and revenge had blurred, and I wasn't sure if what I'd done was noble or merely an act of desperate retribution. As the police vans began to pull up and the distant sound of sirens swelled, I felt a cold resolve settle over me. I had played my final hand, and while some pieces had been captured, false Marcus, the corrupt operatives, the true cost of our choices remained etched in our souls. The empire of deceit was crumbling, but in its place, uncertainty blossomed. Would our family ever truly mend? Could we learn to live with the scars of our past? Or were we doomed to repeat the same errors in a new guise? In that fleeting moment of fragile unity, my mother reached out and took my hand. "We have a chance now," she whispered, her voice both a promise and a plea. Maybe, together, we can find a way to be whole again. I squeezed her hand in return, aware that our reconciliation was tentative and laden with unanswered questions. As I glanced around at the faces of those who had once been strangers in a house built on lies, I realized that the journey to redemption was only beginning. The sun continued to rise, casting long shadows over the fractured remnants of our legacy. In that light, I couldn't help but wonder if true justice would ever be attainable, or if we had merely exchanged one set of scars for another. The cycle of risk, betrayal, and retribution would always linger on the edges of our lives, a reminder that even when the house of cards falls, its pieces scatter in ways that may one day rebuild into a different, perhaps equally precarious, structure. Full circle, indeed. As I took one last look at the gathering, my family, our enemies, and the uncertain future, we all stood at the crossroads of redemption and ruin. And with trembling resolve, I stepped forward into the new day, ready to embrace a future built not solely on the ruins of our past, but on the hope that, somehow, we could forge a more honest path from the fragments of our shattered legacy.